So the Lojong teachings, yes, how they help us to take these inevitable difficulties that we do have in life, even as beings like us who are extremely privileged, who have shelter and food and education and all these kind of things, who have a human body with sense faculties and intelligence, and a lot of comforts in life. Still, of course, there are difficulties, and we meet difficult people. So either we react as a normal human being to these difficulties with self-cherishing and self-grasping, and we succumb to negative emotion, or we use these Lojong teachings and we transform them into the path of enlightenment. So, and this is what this text is all about, to teach us to transform every difficulties that we meet into opportunities for our practice. So we saw 4 verses, and the 5th verse, do you have the text to screen share? The 5th verse then says, "When out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, and the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others." Yes. So I don't know if this happens to you a lot, that you're mistreated, that you get insults and so on. To me, not so often. So that's why I'm also unsure if I can, practice this, offering the victory to others and accepting defeat on myself and so on. But yes, Geshe Langri Tangpa says, encourages us to think like this. And of course, when we practice Dharma, we try to do that sincerely, we will develop good qualities and have good results. And not everybody might like that we develop, that we become good human beings or with good qualities, or and have good results and so on. So people might feel envious, or other, you don't deserve this. They don't see you creating the causes for it, so they instinctively they feel, oh, you don't deserve this, why do you have this, why don't I have this, and so on. And then by envy they might insult you, abuse you, etc. So instead of beating ourselves on the chest and saying, oh, I created the causes for all of this, I made so much effort in virtue, the advice here is to accept their criticism and offer them the victory. So this was the verse, as I've understood it, that Geshe Shikawa heard. He overheard this verse being recited by someone, and this idea of offering the victory and accepting defeat on yourself was so sort of radical for him, and so inspiring to him, that he decided that he would seek out the author of this text of 8 verses. So he went to Lhasa, as I mentioned in the first session, he went to Lhasa. He sought out, he didn't find Geshe Langri Tangpa because he had already passed away, but he found Geshe Shirawa, and then he received the Lojong teachings from him. And indeed, I mean, this idea of accepting defeat on yourself and offering the victory to others, it's completely radical. You see, the way I think about it is that, if we're criticized or if we run into trouble with other people, then basically we have three options. So we can either become, we can either become angry with them, or we can freeze with fear. We can, or a more maybe, let's say, civilized approach is to try to remain calm and engage the other person in dialogue. Try to explain to the person, okay, that try to, if we're, for example, here we're abused or we're accused of something we haven't done and so on. We try to explain to the person, oh, we didn't do it. We try to prove our innocence and so on, or we try to make the other person understand how they have hurt us or how they're hurting themselves by creating negative actions. Okay. Or the third option is that we simply accept what the other person is saying or doing to us, and we say, yes, you're right, I'm wrong. You get the victory, you get what you want, you do, and I just accept. Okay, so these, I think, three different approaches when we are mistreated, when we're abused, when we're attacked physically, verbally, or when other people. Yeah. So I think the first approach is quite common in the world, that we react with aggression. If somebody abuses us, we take revenge. We take revenge tenfold times, maybe. We do unto others what they have done to us, right? So I think this is a quite normal approach in the world, and definitely has been in human history. And we see how in the world it leads to all kind of conflicts and escalation of conflicts, and that people are just locked in conflicts for decades and decades or centuries and centuries. So it doesn't really work. It doesn't work, let's say, to create a harmonious world and a harmonious life. And still, this is a lot of the time the sort of the course which human beings, the strategy which we are following. You mistreat me, I mistreat you. Now, the second approach is maybe more in modern age. The age, like His Holiness often says, this should be the century of dialogue. The 21st century should be a century of dialogue. And I think as people who try to be a bit civilized and reasonable, and who can see things from other people's perspective, not only our own perspective, we try to talk, okay, and explain. We try to see why the other person is feeling the way they feel, hurt, mistreated, whatever, why they're jealous, why they lash out on us. And we try to find some compromise, and we try to explain our perspective as well and make them understand. Okay, so this is very diplomatic, and it's okay. That's even from, I think, it's from a Dharma point of view, from a conventional point of view, it's totally okay as long as we're doing this with some kind of genuine motivation, without anger, without pride. It's okay. We're trying to solve conflicts in a peaceful way. But, the Lojong approach is more radical. The Lojong approach is no explanation, no clarification, no protest, no trying to prove your innocence. It's just, you are right, I am wrong, I accept defeat. And so you can see how this would sort of work in the world. You can imagine, Ukraine, for example, just accepting that Russia take over their country, right? Okay, we're not. You want to invade our country? You posit all these kind of reasons that we cannot enjoin NATO, or we are not a real nation, we really belong to Russia and whatever. So we just accept, you take over our country, okay, you come, you come. And and in and in sports, the same thing, you would just accept defeat from other people, wanting them to win, not wanting to win yourself. So it looks like, I think from the worldly point of view, it looks like completely ludicrous, completely outrageous. Like it looks like you would just let yourself being abused, um, let yourself being run over, even killed. Like it would dissolve country borders, because the forceful and cruel and countries would just take over their neighbors who are practicing Lojong, right? From an individual point of view, it would mean that you're not defending yourself when you're being attacked, when you're being robbed, and etc. etc. It's a bit like, I think it's, if you take these literally, these texts, it is like that, and it's very radical. And I think many people think that yes, it's just like, because you're weak, it's like a morality and approach of a weak person, because a strong person would defend himself, right? A strong person would hit back. But from a Dharma point of view, it makes sense. Um, from a Dharma point of view, at least sometimes, it makes sense to offer the victory to others and to accept defeat. Because by doing so, we are, we are purifying the karma, which is the cause for the conflicts that we are meeting. Why somebody is accusing us, why somebody is robbing us, and etc. Why somebody is attacking us, right? By reacting in the first way with anger and revenge and so on, we are just creating more causes for having experiences similar to the ones that we're having now. And the second approach, that, trying to explain to that person, while it is, good and useful in many situations, often it doesn't work. Like how many times have we been in a conflict with another person, and we listen and we listen and we try to explain and try to explain and listen to what they say and try to understand and so on, but the other person is completely locked in their perspective, and we are completely locked in our perspective, and there's no really any resolution to the conflict that we're having. And in the end, it feels like we've just wasted so much time trying to resolve, some conflict, or some disagreement. So it would be much easier actually just to say, you're right, I'm wrong. We would have won more in terms of, saving our own energy, saving our own mental peace, by just giving up and, offering the victory to others. Now, this in daily life, this can of course translate into, when we are in discussions, simple things. That when we are in disagreements about politics, or, that's a major point of the disagreement between people, no? That, okay, instead of going on and on and on and trying to make the other people see our point of view, we just say, okay, you accept the other person's perspective, and, you know you're more at ease. Even in even they say, the great Lojong practitioners, they say that when you're being attacked physically, abused physically, they would accept like when Togme Sangpo, the author of the 37 practices of Bodhisattva, I remember one day when he was, when he was walking from one place to the other, he was, I think, yeah, he was coming from a teaching. He had been teaching somewhere, and he was walking from the teaching place. And then he came upon three men who robbed him. So they took his belongings, which he offered to them, willingly. And then he told them, "Do not go this way, because there you will find my, the people that I just, you know, my friends. Let's say you will run into my friends. So don't go that way. Take the other way, and you will avoid them." And when they had disappeared, he sat down and he did a medicine Buddha puja for them in order to purify their karma, and so they wouldn't run into trouble. So this is sort of a, really the Lojong approach. Another example is uh, Patrul Rinpoche, when he had been teaching to a large gathering of people, and one of the persons offered him a big piece of silver. And Patrul Rinpoche was said for a big part of his life he would not accept offerings for teaching, for giving teachings. So whatever offerings people would give him, he would just leave at the teaching place. He couldn't be bothered because he was also like a wandering yogi, and he didn't want, the extra belonging, and he didn't want anything in return for what he could give to others. I think this was the reason. So after one teaching, a disciple or a devotee offered him a large a piece of silver, and one of the persons in the gathering saw this, and so obviously this was not a devoted Dharma practitioner, because this person got, was struck by covetousness and followed Patrul Rinpoche as he was walking about, going to another place. And when Patrul Rinpoche had, camped for the night out in, he was sleeping outside. He approached Patrul Rinpoche's, camp, and he started to search his bags. And and Rinpoche then woke up in the middle of the night, and he saw this thief, searching through his baggage, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Where is the silver? Where is the silver that you got?" And he said, "You have to go back to the, to the teaching place, and there you will find the silver." So I think this is sort of the Lojong approach. Well, my, maybe a less glamorous example, but still, I think like Lojong teaching is that a few years ago, uh, when my father, he was at home alone in the house. My mother was, I think, working maybe the night or so. He woke up because he was sleeping downstairs, and he woke up because there was a big bang, and somebody was trying to get into the window, yeah, in the room where he was sleeping. And my father, he woke up and he shouted, "Hey, what are you doing? This is not your house," or something like that. Okay. And the thief, he got scared, and so he ran away. And but it had been snowing, so when the police came, they could just follow it was night, and it had been snowing in the night, and this thief was the only one walking outside, so there was not many foot traces in the snow, right? So the police could just follow the foot traces, and they found the thief on his way breaking into another house. And so they could catch him, in action. So he was taken to jail and then to court, and my father had to go there. And then in the court, my father saw the thief, and it was an immigrant, I think from Syria, who was having a very hard time in Sweden. So my father, he felt compassion for him, and he said something like, "Next time you come through the door as a normal person, and I will offer you coffee." Now, I think this is the Lojong approach. So, of course, it doesn't mean that in every situation we have to accept defeat and offer the victory to others. If we are robbed, if we are hit, if we are verbally abused, and so on, if we see that it's more beneficial for the other person, for example, if it's more beneficial for the other person, this would be a Mahayana perspective, then we would try to do something which stops the other person from doing what they're engaged in. And if we cannot, do it ourselves, practice the Lojong way, which is really, really hard when we stop and think about it. If we really like physically attacked, then at least we try to hurt the other person as little as possible in the process of defending ourselves or a loved one or somebody else. Sometimes it might be better to explain a situation, to really um, proclaim our innocence, than just letting the other person have their way. But sometimes we might feel it's just easier, it's just better to accept, to let the other person have their way. If this makes them happy, to think like that, to view things like that, to think about us like that, and say things about us like this, then it's okay. And that we ourselves can see the benefit for ourselves, that we are able to take criticism, insults, and so on without feeling devastated or even without feeling sad, because it shows that we have actually done some mental transformation in ourselves, that at least sometimes, or in this situation, we were less motivated by worldly concerns, by wanting praise and not wanting criticism, by wanting good reputation, not wanting bad reputation. And so we can be happy with this situation then, that it really gave us the opportunity to transform our mind to less worldly concern. And then, as Shantideva says, he reminds us that, why don't we want criticism? Why don't we want insults and so on? Because unpleasant words, what is unpleasant words? It's just, some flavored air. It's just some, what do you say, these waves in the air, which we impute meaning onto, right? We are imputing the meaning onto these airwaves. And these unpleasant words, they will not kill us, and they will not devour us in this life. They will not devour us in future lives. And unless we let them hurt us by taking them personally, by taking them to the heart, and so on, then we won't be hurt, right? So it's our choice. At least when it comes to criticism and people talking badly about us and so on, then it's really our choice whether we are hurt or not hurt, right? And even when it comes to physical abuse, if we have trained our mind, like Togme Sangpo had done, or even like my precious father had done, then we can transform the unpleasant things which are happening to us physically to something which is not that bad, which is not that dramatic. And the last point, maybe before you go for 20 minutes of discussion, I think in 5 minutes, right, Tom? Is that yes, it is important to take to be able to practice this, to take the defeat on yourself and offer the victory to others. But this is really when we are innocent, and when we know that we're innocent. We are not what the other person is accusing us for. But when we are criticized, or people are pointing out our faults, we shouldn't think every time, we shouldn't assume that we are innocent or assume that the other person is wrong, right? But we need to pay attention when we are being criticized and to see if there is something there in the other person's criticism. And usually there is something there, at least something small, but which the other person might have exaggerated, because of their ego, because of their self-grasping and self-cherishing and so on. They will exaggerate something, which to us at least seems very small, and they will make it a big thing. But we need to have this humility of paying attention to the criticism of others and using it using it as a mirror to see our own faults. Just as when somebody is showing us that pointing out that we have some food around our mouth, or that we have one of these boogies hanging from our nose, or something like that, right? So initially we feel embarrassed then, but usually I think we don't feel enraged because somebody is telling us that we have a boogie in our mouth, in our nose. But we feel embarrassed and we thank the other person, we take it away or something. And it's the same with our our mental faults, or with our with the mistakes that we do in a behavior way, that we don't always see them because we don't see them because they're too close. And when somebody's pointing it out, especially when somebody's pointing out in a kind way, then to be grateful and accept and try to change. Like our behavioral boogies and our mental boogies, we take them away. Thank you so much. And this is also what the Buddha advised, that he said that if a wise person points out a fault in you, then you should treat that person as if they have shown you a hidden treasure. So we try to appreciate the constructive criticism of others, not to assume that we are so perfect, and not to assume that we're innocent every time, and try to see the perspective of others. And if, after having contemplated it, we find that, there's really nothing there, like it's really much based on the other person's projections, then we can see if it's better to try to resolve the situation by diplomacy, by explanation, or just accept defeat and offer the victory to us. Okay, so I hope there's a little bit basis for discussion in what I said now and in that verse, and so please discuss it from various points of views, and then we meet again in 40 minutes, right? So
I have a question. Can I please ask you a question?
Yes, please. Make it.
I wanted to ask it before, but never mind. when you were explaining this verse, and also we had this discussion, it even intensified my question because we discussed about it and about the other side, who is the attacker and me, and the relations between the attacker and me, and do I have to sympathize or to empathize with the attacker or not, and to which degree and in which cases. It was a good discussion, I think. But when taking it back, when you were first reading this verse, and I was thinking about it, there is that side and this side, and clear borders between us, and that we are discussing now about the borders. But from at least some of the studies that I've been fortunate enough to take part of in the Buddhism, there is this whole issue of dependent arising, that means, in my understanding, or emptiness, that there are not really clear borders between everybody and everything. And so it's like this other teaching is totally forgotten, and now there's clear borders, there is no dependent horizon, there is no emptiness, everything is clearly defined, and now go and deal with it. So this was something I was thinking about it, whether these two different Buddhistic texts which are totally contradicting or not in a dialogue with each other, or maybe just some food for thought. So I wanted to share and raise this point, if possible.
No, they're not. They're not separated. I mean, the what's called the method side and the wisdom side are very much going together. And I think the more we can integrate the idea of emptiness, that there's not these borders which appear to us, that there's not this subject-object duality which appears to us. The more we can, integrate what's emptiness on the one side and dependent arising on the other side, the more we can practice also the method side by having the awareness of emptiness and in the back of our head. Because as it says in the teachings, these are inseparable, dependent arising and emptiness. Our nature is emptiness, your nature, my nature, everything's nature is, ultimate nature is emptiness. At the same time, this emptiness manifests as, dependent arising as causes and effects. There's no contradiction between these two. And by seeing the two perspectives together, we can understand that the experiences that I have, the unpleasant and the pleasant, are the results of my own karma. And by accepting it's the result of my own karma, I can accept the difficulties without anger and so on, or with less anger. And knowing that if I don't create more negativities, I will not experience suffering in the future, that there's this kind of infallibility. Yeah.
What do you mean by the way that our nature is emptiness? What do you mean by that sentence?
I mean, well, what the teachings say is that the ultimate nature of all phenomena is emptiness of intrinsic existence. So you are dependent arising, I am a dependent arising, everything around you is a dependent arising. And even though for us there seems to be clear borders between all conventional phenomena, in emptiness there are no such clear borders. Everything is said to be one taste in emptiness. like one nature in emptiness, equally empty of intrinsic existence. And when you realize emptiness, the three, how do you say, dualistic appearances of conventional phenomena, of subject-object duality, which is very strongly present in us now, and the appearance of true existence, all of these just disappear. There's not, these things just disappear. So if you have this awareness when you go about in the world, like heartfelt appearance, awareness, because you've realized it, either inferentially or directly, you know that whoever you meet because you've created the causes for it, because this is dependent arising. It is related to your mind. The person you meet is related to your mind, and you are related to their mind somehow. It's not by any coincidence. And this has to do with the empty nature of all phenomena. Because it's related to your mind, and it's not haphazard, it's not by chance. We can also accept the experiences that we have, the good and the bad, because we know it's coming from our mind. It's not haphazard. And if we deal with it skillfully, the things which are coming from our mind will all be pleasant, will all be good, no problem. And the bad things that we do experience, we know it's also coming from our mind, from some unskillful actions in the past. Okay, again, no problem. If we just deal with it skillfully in the moment, then we won't experience more unpleasant things later. What I'm saying is that by realizing emptiness, you will know that it's coming from your own mind, all the things around you. Does it help somehow? That anything else?
I was thinking about this interdependence and asking myself during the coffee break if the fact that I give someone the victory, and take this approach, does it mean that I am actually giving in or giving up on something? Or does it mean the complete opposite, that the fact that I'm able to give someone else the victory doesn't mean that I'm actually giving up or giving in, but the complete opposite. I'm not giving in, I'm not giving up. I'm just seeing this interdependency. It's a question, I don't have the answer.
Yes, I mean, from somebody who believes in interdependence, that profound dependent arising, and by that acting in virtuous ways, there will be, good results. Offering the victory to others and accepting defeat on yourself makes perfect sense. Like not giving more negativities into the world makes perfect sense. So because you know that there will be good results in the future. And there was an expression that Jetsun Tenzin Palmo used, which I liked, is that yes, externally you're offering the victory to others, but internally the victory is yours, right? Because what we're trying to be victorious of as Dharma practitioners is our own mind. We're trying to conquer our minds. That's the only thing we want to conquer. We're trying to overcome our own afflictions, our own self-grasping attitude, our own self-cherishing. Those are the only enemies. And sentient beings and whatever is happening is not really a problem, and it's not really an enemy. It's only our inner enemies that we're trying to conquer. So from that perspective, yes, you externally it looks like you're giving up, you're losing. But if you're doing that by retaining your calmness, your kindness, and an awareness of interdependence and emptiness, then you're just winning, because you're getting closer to awakening. And that's the thing which matters for a Dharma practitioner. Not so, and the other things, not much less. If this country is called Tibet or if it's called China, less importance than if you can progress to the path of awakening. Like this, the external things are much less value. And this thing which makes it so difficult also for a person who is not, let's say, studied and developed some faith in the teachings of interdependence and emptiness, and that the only real enemies are the afflictions and the self-grasping attitude and so on. Because from their perspective, it will look like you're totally meek, that you're letting yourself be exploited, and so on and so on. But from your perspective, it's not like that, because if you're giving in it's also about if you genuinely give the victory to others, you have some choice. It's not because it's not because you're weak and trying to avoid confrontation. You could take confrontation, but it's not worth it, and it's not what you really want. For you, it's not important to prove that you're right, that you get your will in the end. What is important is that you're reducing your self-cherishing and your afflictive emotions. So it's not because you're afraid of confrontation and so on.
I think, it's a very interesting debate or issue or subject to analyze. But I think, in one hand, that it's like we have to be responsible of how we say that or how we do that, because a person who is harming another person, and we were talking here, Sigal was talking about a policeman who did terrible things to other person, saying like, okay, you're right, I'm wrong, or you won, is like saying that he was right, so he can do that again and again, and think about sexual abuse, for example. Okay, so this is one of the things that I'm thinking, where do you place yourself in a moment like that?
Yes.
For me, forgiveness is like easier than to think, the way you are talking about.
Yes. So like I said, it has to do, you have to use discrimination and see in which situation it makes sense to practice like this. And our own ability I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And to train our mind to see that what we experience is the results of our karma. Even the very unpleasant things are the results of our karma.
Yeah.
And to then see that being under the power of karma, it's like contaminated karma, it's a horrible situation. Because really we have to see or feel this is a horrible situation, because all kind of bad things can happen and will happen as long as we are under the power of contaminated karma. By seeing how horrible it is and tracing the root back to self-grasping, we can develop renunciation of being reborn under the power of karma and afflictions. And then this, this renunciation is the determination to be free from suffering and suffering conditions. Yes. But whether we can offer the victory or whether we approach it in a different way, like forgiveness afterwards and so on, it's up to us. But we need to see that these are the results of our karma, and that karma traces back to self-grasping, and that this is a horrible situation to be in, and develop our mind striving for liberation and not be lured by samsaric pleasures. This is the point.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
And talking about karma means that we were there once. We were the vicious police guy. We were the rapists. We were the murderers. We've been through all that as well ourselves, It's important to remember that.
Or we are in different situations, because we are not killing people because we are cultured, let's say, but we are killing, relationships, and we are killing, yes, I'm thinking about relationships that we are killing because of the same, the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very muddy water to talk about those things with Middle Eastern people.
You mean about karma?
No, not about karma, but about how to offer the victory, because it's a neighborhood where if you are offering the victory to someone, it's a culture. The Middle East is a culture where if you want to be stronger, you're going to be ruined by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So the aggressive wins.
Mm.
And it's very hard to detangle that mentality slowly as an individual, and convincing more people that this is the way. It's like really, it's a radical thinking here.
Yes.
And it's like, even me, I find myself on the streets when two drivers are fighting with one another, just saying stop to them is radical. It's radical culturally in our mind.
Even in the elevator, who enters and who goes out first. Wow.
That's the thing. So use the small circumstances to offer the victory to others. Mm-hmm. Let other people go out in the elevator first. Whatever it is, offer the parking to others. Offer the victory to others, because with the small things, with the things which are not life and death, and then you will inspire. I think you will inspire others. People will change. My mother, like I said, my mother is from Iran, and she also has this kind of mentality. She tried to teach me that you have to have sharp elbows. She would say to me when I was growing up, You have to have sharp elbows. And maybe I was influenced by my mother's approach as well. And and I understand her also. She's coming from that culture. She had to sort of defend herself and make her will very strong, because she's a girl as well in Iran, which was not easy. But then she's bringing the same kind of mentality to Sweden, and she runs into all sorts of trouble. And unnecessarily, she's asserting herself, I feel. And many times, unnecessarily, she's asserting herself with people who are not at all aggressive or abusive and so on, but it's just something of the habit. And this sharp elbow approach actually, just put off people and make you lonely and get into unnecessary conflicts. So in these cultures where aggression might be more prominent, in the small situations, try to offer the victory to others.
But I have a question. I have a question, because let's say about the parking lot. If I want to park and someone comes, and he enters immediately, and I want to, like revenge or something like that. I want to yell at him. So I could say, okay, you want, it's your place, it's okay. But it's like I have it. So the situation can finish there. So he said, oh, I have the power, I did it, she's a woman, I am a man, I won. Okay? This is one situation. But the other is like coming to him and saying, I prefer to give you this place because I don't want to fight, and like explaining him, so he has issue to evaluate or something like that. But in the other hand, it's like I'm right. So this is the two places, because one thing is like I want to explain or teach him, so maybe and in the bottom line, I want to be right in that situation. So I don't know what is the best thing, to in which place to stand. So karmatically, it's okay.
Karmically, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, when you maybe if we genuinely cherish others more than ourselves, then it will not be the issue. You would just want that person to have, their wish be fulfilled, more important than yours. So then it won't be this kind of, inner conflict either, of feeling that, well, I should do like this because the Buddhist teachings are saying it and it's good karma. But on the other hand, it's a complete douchebag and it's a chauvinist and so on. It won't be this conflict, but it would just be generally like, like a mother with her child that, okay, this person is getting what they want. I'm so happy for him, like some genuine. But still, there will be the awareness. It's not like we become stupid because we're trying to practice the Mahayana path. There will be the awareness that, this person seems to be motivated by strong self-cherishing and other sort of weird ideas, like he's superior to you because he's a man or whatever. So this person will suffer. This person will run into trouble. This person will meet the results of its own actions. You have that also in the background of your head, and on this basis you can feel compassion. You can feel sorry for him, and you know that by being decent and by being good with others, then there will be things will open up for you. So it makes you sort of relax with it. There will not be so much inner conflict, and it's not about, I don't know exactly what the point now you were making, but you will not have this kind of inner conflict that on the one hand you're you should practice Dharma, on the other hand you have this anger or conceit or whatever. No conflict inside. Should we continue with the next verse, or you have some more feedback on this verse that we just did? So the next verse then says, when someone whom I've benefited and whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So of course, I'm thinking about, from the perspective of, for example, a spiritual teacher who is benefiting the disciples and who has hope that the disciples will, practice the instructions, carry on the teachings, and doing so purely for the benefit of sentient beings. Of course, this spiritual teacher will run into disappointments, because sentient beings, we are sentient beings. All the disciples will not practice purely. Most of them won't. What do I know? But the disciples, yeah, a teacher will need to have a lot of patience with the disciples, and is bound to be sort of disappointed. It's not necessarily, completely natural for us, for everybody of us, to be grateful either for the, teachings that we receive, or for the material benefits that we receive. We have the tendency to take these things as for granted. So for a spiritual teacher, has to have this in mind, and so be ready for disappointments and to transform those very unpleasant circumstances to the path. And it's the same for parents with their children, and with spouses, with each other, and with friends. Anybody that we feel that we are benefiting in somehow, and that we have trust in, and some hopes in, conscious or unconscious. In some way or another, we are bound to be disappointed. We will not get what we want from that person, what we expect from that person. And we know this from our relationships. And and when we don't get what we want, and when our trust is, let down, or when we're insulted and so on by someone who we've helped, this is, I think, particularly hurtful. No, from your experience as parents, as spouses, having relationships, and from your friendship as well. You have to think about people that you have helped and benefited, and they show you unkindness or rejection in return. It's very hurtful, but it's part of life. So when I was in Sweden recently, I have a niece, a very beautiful niece, a girl who's now 13 years old, and I know her since she was born. And so when she was born, I was not a monk at that time, and I would take care of her, walk around her, on my shoulder, and she would drool on my shoulder, and I was playing with her ever since she was a baby, and I was doing all the games she wanted to do with the Barbie dolls and so on. And even as a monk, I would play with the Barbie doll, and we would do things together and have fun and so on. And now she's a teenager, so many of these things are not fun anymore. And I asked her if she wanted to come, and if she wanted to meet. And of course, she didn't. No, not of course, but she didn't want to come and meet, because it's not fun for her anymore. The games and companionship, the friends are much more fun. And of course, this is just one very trivial example, but for parents, I suppose, with your children, when they come into puberty, That must be so difficult, I imagine, that because you have this affection, and you maybe the recollection of the benefits you have given to your children, but we as children, we don't have the same recollection and the clarity. We don't remember when you were, walking around with us as babies and so on, but you do, and you have the affection still. That's sort of maybe the unconditional, something like unconditional affection, and whereas for a teenager, then the friends are more important and so on. And there's a lot of grudges for everything that didn't go right in your childhood, and the things that you simply don't understand as parents because you're so ignorant that you don't understand the way that as teenagers working and so on. And so you have to work with that. So this verse is about that. Somebody who you've benefited, and who's giving you harm in return, and who you feel great affection for. What to do, how to regard that, deal with that situation. And then also, yes, as the spiritual teachers, like remember from a talk by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, where he was giving the example of a couple in Tibet whom he had sent a lot of money to, because I think they were supposed to construct a stupa in Tibet. It was an important project for Rinpoche, and he had sent them lots and lots of money. I think it was hundreds of thousands of dollars over many years to find the land and to find the company that would build the stupa and so on. And in the end, they have taken all this money over the years, and they had built their own house. They have taken it for themselves. And when Rinpoche was talking about it, he was saying something like that they were so kind, these people, that they have purified eons of negative karma for him. The karma of stealing, that he had purified his karma of stealing. Eons of negative karma, he was saying. And then I remember he'd said something, he hesitated a little bit, like he wanted to express a little bit of disappointment still. But he stopped himself, And you can imagine for a big, great master such as that, who has many disciples and many projects and who have given so much help to others, how many occasions for disappointment there are, that the people are not really practicing the way, you ask for advice, you get the advice, but then you don't practice according to it. Or yeah. It's very difficult, I think, to be a spiritual teacher, to be a pure spiritual teacher, and having to deal with all of these kind of disappointments. So the advice is to, rather than feeling extremely hurt and to feel this kind of resentment in ourselves, which would be the natural reaction, and to act negatively, is to see this person as your spiritual teacher, like one of the kindest persons in your life, really. Because, this person is revealing to you somehow your selfish motivations for the good actions that you did. They're revealing to you, I think, a little bit of the agenda that we had, that we might not have known when we were doing good for others. But we see that when we feel disappointed, when we feel rejected or let down, then we realize that there must have been some attachment there for my own sake. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been this kind of resentment, disappointment, and so on. And we know that this resentment, holding on to grudges, is hurtful for our mind. It doesn't give our mind any peace, any satisfaction. So what's the point of holding on to it? So in order to let go of our resentment, our bitterness, then we try to see this this person as our kind guru. And I mean, the alternative is often quite horrible in the world. What people do out of bitterness or when they feel let down is often quite horrible. Like I remember there was a friend, a family friend of my father, and my father would always, he was Iranian, and my father would always say when I was a kid, that this man, he was so kind, so sweet, so innocent, so this, so that. My father would go on like this about him. And then apparently this guy, his wife cheated on him, and the wife had a very bad taste, and to cheat on him with his best friend. It was not my father; it's somebody else. And of course he felt so hurt, so let down by his wife and by his best friend that he completely lost his mind, and he tried to kill his wife. And so he took a knife and he stuck it into the stomach of his wife. And the wife, luckily, she didn't die; she survived. But and he got prison. He was sent to prison. So he lost everything. He lost his job as a carpenter, and I think he lost a lot of his family relationships. The daughters, everybody rejected him, and he probably lost many of his friends as well. And he was in prison for many years because. And then many years later, when he got out of prison and tried to, get his life together again, I remember I saw him as an adult person. He was because he was making some maintenance work in my parents' house, some renovation work and so on. So there was this very sweet guy. My father always praised he was such a sweet guy, but he had been in prison for trying to kill his wife. And a few years later, I heard that he had died because he, when he was working in his home with some kind of carpentry, he had accidentally cut himself with a knife. When he was going to and there was a big cut, so he was really bleeding. And he was going to the phone, something like that, and he called the ambulance to come and pick him up. But before he got to the door to open the door, he had lost so much blood that he fainted and he died. And so had this man, who I'm sure, as my father said, had a lot of good qualities and a lot of sweetness, but because he felt so incredibly deceived and hurt, had he met these teachings of transforming this kind of great hurt, then hopefully he would not, he wouldn't have tried to kill his wife, and he would not have gone to prison. He would not have died from this horrible way of dying. and who knows what kind of karma he created from all of this and what he will have to experience in the future, because he would have, some reason, some basis for transforming this incredible hurt. So again, whatever things that we are meeting, the trivial things that I meet in my life, the niece that doesn't want to see you, or the friends that criticize you despite you've helped them quite a lot, or whatever it is, you try to take these kind of trivial things and you try to see this person as your holy guru, somebody very kind to you, giving you hurt and response for benefit, and response for attempted benefit. And this is a sort of a indispensable aspect of the bodhisattva path, of that even the most difficult people, and I think the most difficult people are the people that we benefit with all our heart and they give us hurt in return. These are the most difficult people, not to give up on them, to retain our compassion for them. Because if we can do that, it means that, we are not rejecting anybody from the scope of our compassion. And it means that we are actually able to, have the bodhi mind, the bodhicitta mind, which is for the sake of every sentient being, including those who harm us, who hurt us. And this is our goal as Mahayana practitioners, the bodhi mind. So in this way, the people, these rare people, that they're so precious to us, but it may be because they're sort of the last fortress for us to conquer before we can actually develop the bodhicitta mind. Then we know that we can sort of include everybody in our compassion, even those that hurt us after we have benefited them. Do you have any comment on that? Question on that?
I'm thinking that maybe we should realize that our motivation should never be of any expectation. Don't expect anything, and so you will never be let down. I think His Holiness once said something about expectations, like, who are you to expect? What do you expect? Why do you expect? It shouldn't be part of the motivation, maybe. That's my conclusion.
Yes. Absolutely. We have to be very sort of, how do you say? Yeah, renounced. That's why renunciation is so important in order for it's a preliminary to bodhicitta. You renounced, that things are not reliable, that relationships are not reliable, that you cannot expect, let's say, even what is decent. What is decent is that if you are kind to somebody, they're kind in return. That if you don't hurt anybody, they don't hurt you. That's just plain decency. But even that you cannot expect in samsara. So, this is the nature of things, nature of people, of samsaric people. So there's no surprise there, no disappointment. It's okay. Again, like Shantideva says, it's the nature of childish beings is in one moment we are friends, next moment we are enemies. If you say something pleasant, to them, even if it's false, even if it will lead to their ruin, they will love you, they will praise you, and they will think of you as a friend. If you, with the best of intention and wisdom, point out a fault or say something which is unpleasing to them, they will despise you, they will feel contempt for you, they will criticize you, and so on. And this is the nature of samsaric being. So then he concludes there's no companionship with samsaric beings. So from our side, we should try not to be a samsaric being. We should not try to be so immature. And if we have mature friends, friends who are thinking no more in lines of Dharma, then to really cherish that friendship. And that friend will not be just somebody who taps us on the back and says pleasing things to our ego and so on, because they know that our ego is our enemy. So, and they will be ready to point out our faults, to criticize us when needed, to put us down if needed, and so on. And we should be very thankful for that if they're doing that with wisdom and genuine motivation, because they're like a true friend, not a samsaric friend.
You know, I want to share something related to that. I learned a lot from my grandsons, because one of them, in one occasion, he told me, "Oh, I'm apologize. Maybe you are mad at me because what I did." So I said, you know, there is nothing now and in the future that you will do that I will be mad at you and I will be angry at you, because my love to you is unconditional. Never in my life I will feel that my love to you is, under condition of something. And for me, it's like a law with them. And sometimes when I feel, angry at a friend or some person that something happened to with that person, I say, why I can't bring that law or that statement with that person, because I feel angry, I want revenge, I want to call her, and she will feel that I'm angry or something like that, and I say, everything is in my mind, because I could be like I am with my grandson. And I'm not in that case, So it's like I analyze myself. What is there in my mind that is, looking for revenge or for anger or something like that.
Why can you be like that? Why can you have unconditional love for your grandchildren and not for your friends?
Yeah, this is a question. Yeah, because I'm living in a samsaric world. That's why I'm here.
So that's why we're all here. So we try to find, if maybe it's helpful for you to think about everybody as at one time been your grandchild.
Yeah, this is
Whoever we can really feel some kind of unconditional affection for, whoever we can have some patience with, we try to think of others as being that person, and that just during the course of so much time have passed, that so much changes have happened, that now we don't recognize them as such. But at one point, and it's really mind-blowing, really mind-blowing, but at one point we have cherished others like that, with that same kind of affection, and Yeah, so we try to bring that into our present life. And if we can, we will benefit so much from I think so, at least. I don't know from personal experience having unconditional compassion, because I don't. But I think, just from the little experience of compassion and love and little, and the patience that gives, we will benefit so much, and we will benefit others as well. So make some effort then to find that person who you feel affectionate, unconditional affection for, and then, think about others in the same way. And I will try to do the same. Anything else? Comment, disagreement, or question? Okay. So these days, when past few weeks, I try to be more mindful of thinking about these verses in my daily life, in my interactions with other people. And other people are the basis for practicing Lojong. So please do the same in your life, in your day-to-day life. Try to see everybody as an opportunity to practice Lojong, especially every difficulty as an opportunity to practice Lojong, and see how it works for you, so that these teachings don't remain just on an intellectual level, but we actually see their benefit in our life. Yeah. So we can then conclude with the dedication prayers, dedicating for the sake of all sentient beings, and for the teachings to remain in this world, because the teachings are a source of benefit. So we can think strongly then that this virtuous energy that we have created through listening, thinking about, explaining the teachings, that this energy might go out into the world and benefit countless sentient beings, reducing their causes of suffering and increasing their causes of happiness. By bringing them the nectar of the Dharma, so that they can transform their own mind. And we do the dedication prayers. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and may it especially cause the essence of the perfect, pure Losang Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Then to the conventional bodhicitta to increase in our heart. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. May the precious view of emptiness not yet born arise, but that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Samsara nirvana, like even an atom of inherent existence, and cause and effect independent arising on betraying, I seek a blessing to discern the meaning of Nagarjuna's thought, that these two are mutually complementary and not contradictory. Yes, may the precious realization of the two stages not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. And then for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the source of countless Dharma teachings in this world, and the inspiration and source of so many great other masters in this world, to have a long life and all His holy wishes to be fulfilled. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to quickly return into this world and to continue to be of great benefit to sentient beings. You uphold the subduals more way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, spreading Majna's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Savior and myself and others, your disciples, please return quickly. Okay.
Thank you so much.